Springtime is among us, and today we're going to turn some simple yarn into a beautiful landscape. I'm Akeem Kidder, and welcome to Yarn Painting with the Yarn Art Guy. When I first started yarn painting, I would create things that I liked, from celebrity portraits to characters from movies. Once I started creating nature scenes, I found that connected with almost everybody. It doesn't matter who you are, we all see something beautiful in nature. That's why more and more I want to create pieces that we could all appreciate. So today I'll take you through a landscape piece. We're gonna make sure it's fun and bright, just like springtime, colorful and warm. I found a canvas that's a little different than my usual canvases. And when people think of landscapes, they usually think of it horizontally. But I think we should do something vertically. So in this video, I'll tell you my concept idea. We're gonna do a little quick sketch and get right to yarn painting. If yarn painting is something that interests you, all you're gonna need is a canvas or something to work on, some glue. Any kind of glue that you like to use will work. You're gonna see in this piece, I use some hot glue. You're also gonna need some good scissors and a bunch of yarn. Let's get crafty. When I start a new piece, I often want to do a sketch. This isn't always true. It often depends on the type of piece. Like when I'm working on a pet portrait that people custom order or something that needs to be very specific, I'll do a sketch. But if it's something more abstract, I might just go straight into it with the yarn. Here, I want to make sure to divide the canvas into proper ratios and capture everything from the sunrise to the mountains all the way down to the flowers. I'm not super focused on making the drawing look exactly right, it's more about positioning and sizing. The sketch will help me get an idea of where to place each strand of yarn and really act like a guideline. A little bit of flowers here, a rock there, a bush here. This is all just a starting point. And if when I start yarn painting, I find that I need to change things around, I give myself the freedom to do so. I know this seems actually quite detailed, but if you're trying yarn painting for the first time, I want you to know that your sketch is for position, not for detail. Trust me, it'll save you a lot of time because yarn painting is a long process. Now that we got a sketch, we're ready to start yarn painting. Like any good craft, the process starts with setting up your work area. So for this piece, we're going to need to find the right tools, which include a sharp pair of scissors. You want this to be high quality so you get clean pieces of yarn and less strings and fraying to deal with. We're going to be using a hot glue gun to make sure the piece is strongly held together. And for this piece, I will lay out various colors of yarn. I want this piece to feel bright and fun and full of life, so I'm using some very vibrant colors. I'm not sure which part of this piece are going to be which colors, but that's part of the fun of the creative process. I use what's called acrylic yarn. It's tightly wound so it doesn't break apart as easy as something like wool, and it's also quite heat resistant, which allows me to work with a hot glue gun without any concern. You'll see other pieces I have use different yarns, so if you're working on something like this at home and don't have this specific type of yarn, any kind will work and comes with their own challenges. I'll also lay out some cold glue just in case you're trying this at home and don't trust yourself with a hot glue gun. But that also comes with some extra challenges because it doesn't dry too quickly and you're very liable to push the piece out of place. So chop chop, it's time to get into the action. We're gonna start with a white sun, and this will act as the focus point of this whole piece. So let's delicately lay down our first strand of yarn. Immediately, you're gonna see that creating circular forms with yarn is a lot easier when you have a hot glue gun, because the spiraling action of the yarn pulls on the piece that's laid onto the canvas. Doing this with a cold glue is a lot more difficult. You'll see in future videos, I'll show you which kind of pieces lend themselves to more cold glue versus hot glue. Here, you see the importance of good scissors. These aren't my best and it takes a couple snips to really cut the end, which is something you want to avoid because you really want to avoid that pulling feeling on yarn that's already laid down. Next, we want to capture the effect of the sun shining, but unlike a regular paint, With yarn, we can't blend colors, so we need to make it look like an optical illusion. I do this by slowly transitioning from a light yellow to a darker yellow, trying to slowly introduce a change in color from the bright white sun to the vibrant yellow sky. This is a skill of mine that took time and is an effect I love to portray. Here, you can see me lay down the connection point between the mountain and the sky, but I realized that I don't like this color because it was placed a little bit too early before I really knew what the sky was going to look like. So with yarn painting, one of the negatives is that I really need to avoid mistakes because it's not something I could just paint over. I literally have to rip that piece off and start again. This is where you could really benefit from cold glue. The next important part here is the clouds. The sky during a sunrise is a beautiful thing. The colors in real life seem almost fake, so I often feel like I can't go wrong with the colors that I choose. Here, I went with a fun light purple that initially worried me because it's quite strange, but when you're yarn painting, I often have the mantra of trust the process. Something that looks a little weird when you start might be beautiful when the piece comes together. People often ask why I don't make more videos of my yarn painting, and I'm now showing you the process at normal speed so you can get an idea of how long a creation like this actually takes. Each individual strand that you see is specifically cut, glued, and placed, which means that depending on the style of yarn painting, even a small piece can take multiple hours. Look at this piece so far. I've only completed the sky and I'm already about 2 hours in. Imagine you had to watch this whole video process. I don't think I'm that entertaining. But the people have asked for it, so I'm showing you some of the patience that it takes to create yarn paintings. A trick to speed up some of the process is to pre-cut a bunch of little strands and then place them in groups. You can also try doing 2 strands at a time for longer sections. But I found it's really a craft where it takes practice to know what works. Sometimes doing all of one color at a time and then moving on to the next color is best, and sometimes going from left to right on the canvas works better. This comes down to personal preference. I prioritize elements that will be most impactful when the piece is finished. So things like shading and transition points really need to pop so that I know in the end the piece will come together properly. For example, on this piece, the shadows of the mountain will be very important to showcase depth, so it's something I want to highlight. The transition between the sky and the mountain will really show the vastness of the mountain range. It's something that seems simple but has a very high impact for the viewer. This might be a slow and delicate process, but as a Canadian, I feel like if you're gonna create a painting that includes mountains, you have to do it right. You have to make people feel as though it's a natural element with a sense of grandeur. When I look at a mountain range, it really makes me put into perspective how small I am compared to the earth, and sometimes I try to use that to reflect on my life and see maybe whatever problems I might be having now are small too in the grand scheme of things. Part of the creative process is going with the flow and adapting while trusting that the end result will be something great. Make sure to join me for part 2 of this video where we start working our way down from the mountains into the lake and through the trees to find our way to the beautiful vibrant flower bed where the yarn painting techniques change and the whole painting comes together. You'll see my struggle with creating trees while trying to play with depth perception. You'll see how I use yarn to make the grass look realistic. You'll see how even though it might not look like I know what I'm doing, and to be honest, even if you create something that isn't exactly how you expect it to be, it's really the fact that you did it, which makes it beautiful. So make sure to stay creative, stay inspired, and I'll see you in part 2.